Hey guys, it's Amber. So today I'm going to be doing a old school makeup tutorial. I've had some requests for just some basic makeup tutorials where I talk about every step, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and for some videos including contouring and more like glam looks. So I'm going to kind of be combining that all today and doing a more in-depth makeup look. So today I'm going to be going for a more full coverage, more dramatic makeup look. I'm also going to talk about a few things I do to keep my makeup on when I'm wearing a mask. Now, obviously, the easiest thing to do is not wear makeup or just do your eyes and not even wear foundation. But if you're going for a night out and you're going somewhere to dinner or something where you have to wear a mask, then you have to take it off and you want to try to stop it rubbing off as much as possible, there are a few things that I have done that I have noticed help me keep my makeup on longer. Like I said, obviously the easiest choice is not to wear foundation, but if you are looking to wear more of a full coverage foundation, I'll show you some things I've done that have helped because I do have to wear a mask to work, and when I come home, I don't always want to have to do a full face all over again, especially if I have something else going on that night, or I just don't want to look like I've got a red nose rubbed off, you know what I mean? I am going to start with the eyes first just because I feel like it's going to be easier without the rest of my makeup on to focus on the eyes. So we'll go ahead and jump right into that. So all the products I'm going to be using today are from my everyday makeup drawer. So if you missed that video, be sure to check that one out. I'll talk about how I'm storing it now and all the products I've picked. So I'm going to start off with using a eye primer. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills eye primer. If you want to do a dark makeup look, you also could go with like a dark eye primer. It's really personal preference. I like this one because it lasts really well, but also because it blanks out any discoloration that you have in your eyelids. So for me, I just have like some veining and it's kind of pink, and this is going to act like a concealer would to kind of conceal that. I find a little bit goes a long way. And I do have to make sure I blend it in really well. I have just a little tube of this and it has honestly lasted me so long. I have noticed that if I have anything kind of patchy with the eye primer, it will translate to the eyeshadow look. So make sure you get it blended out really smooth. Kind of around the corners here, a lot of times I will miss that area just because I'm in a hurry and I'm not paying that much attention. Also like right in here. You also could take it underneath the eyes too if you would like. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my eyeshadow with a powder. What this does is it gives a base for my eyeshadow to stick to. Sometimes I find when I go in with a dark color, that first blob I put up will kind of stick to the primer and it'll be hard for me to blend it. So I find if I go in with like a light fluffy brush and just go into something that matches my skin tone. This is a Coastal Scent shade. I believe it is, I don't know how to say this, a chamois nude. I don't know, someone tell me how to say that. But I'm going to just use a fluffy brush and I'm going to just set that. This helps the primer set down. This primer is pretty self-setting, so you don't have to do it, but I just like to include it because some primers remain really tacky, and I noticed that unless you've got a really light hand, sometimes you can get that kind of patchiness. So when I'm doing a smoky eye, I like to build depth in layers. So I don't usually go in with like a really dark color right at first, because then what happens is I start adding it, and then the more I add, like the higher and higher and higher it gets until I feel like it's too much, and then I get frustrated and then I take it off and then I'm like, whatever. So I find that if I start with a lighter color and start building depth, it just works a little bit easier for me. So I usually like to use a light fluffy brush like this, and that helps the fibers be really soft. The bristles are softer. I like to hold my brush at the end so I'm not putting too much pressure on, and just kind of do a light wash of color. So let's go into this one right here. This is a Coastal Scent shade as well. This is called Pumpkin Pie. I like shades that have a little bit of warmth to them for this like transition-y type shade. You can also go into something that's a little gold, or you could do really any shade. You could do a purple, you could do pink, anything you want to kind of have as an accent shade. And you really can just kind of softly put this all over your lid. And this shade I usually choose to be like 1 to 2 shades darker than what my first base shade is, just because I'm going to start with that gradient. And I typically don't like to take it up farther than like my brow bone. I like to keep this space up here just blank so it adds the contrast. Some people like to do like little circles to help them blend, just as long as it's a nice smooth layer. It works out well. So you can see that's just added a little bit of depth on this eye versus this one. The next shade I'm going to pick is something that I want to be my target color. So my overall smoky eye will have this look. So if I was wanting to do a blue smoky eye or a purple smoky eye, this is where I'd want to go in with that brighter color. I forgot to mention this earlier, but I always stick with matte shades for these first couple just because they blend easier. I find with fine lines and crepiness on your eyes, it doesn't attract into those little bits and make that show up more. And I feel like it just is easier to blend. And for me, I have hooded eyes, so the dark matte colors are gonna help kind of pull that back in, make my eye look a little more three-dimensional because my eye's a little flat. So it helps add and build the depth. And then when I add the shimmers on the bottom, it helps the light kind of reflect and pull that forward a little bit. So I'm gonna go into this brown shade right here. This is called New Terrain. I don't even know if these colors are still a thing. These are ones I've had for a few years. But, I mean, it's basic colors, so. If you get a lot on your brush, you can always take your hand and just kind of dust off like this. That makes it so you don't get too much right when you apply. And then I'm going to just apply this on my lid and work up, but I'm going to leave that last little bit where I added that pumpkin pie shade, just kind of blend into it, but not completely cover it. Then I'm going to go back in with that brush, or I will switch to like a little bit smaller brush. Then I will go back in with that same color and start to concentrate on the crease. So again, I'll hold it more at the tip. I will kind of put the brush right above where my eye socket is. You can kind of feel it. And then if you kind of just work back and forth, that will help darken up that crease area a little bit more. Because it all depends on like the look you're wanting to create and also the shape of your eye. But I definitely like my crease just a little bit darker. I find it's also helpful if I just put a little towel in my lap and then I can just kind of brush some of the extra product off if I need to. And then if I want to go back into the lighter colors to kind of help with the blend, I will do that. So for the dark side, I'm going to be using the shade Shadowy Lady from MAC, and I like to use a slightly more pointed brush to start with and just kind of lay a line right in the crease, and then I'll go back and start to blend it out. And I just add a little bit at a time until it gets to the depth that I want. I really like deepening the crease area for hooded eyes because it helps, like I said, give you a little bit of dimension. Once I get more of a line laid down, I'll go back in with my fluffier brush and just add some of the dark and then add some of the brown and just kind of start to buff that color so it's a little more seamlessly blended. Throw some of the brown on top. And you don't need to worry too much about getting it on the lid because we are just going to go back and put a color over that. I like to add a little bit and then look in the mirror, kind of step back and make sure my sides are balanced. Kind of look at it that when your eyes are slightly different shapes and sizes, it's easy to get them a little different. But another thing that's nice about doing the eyeshadow first is anything that's up here or excess around the sides, you can go back and clean up when you do your foundation line. If you need help blending but you don't want your color traveling up further, I would go in with one of your lighter brown shades and a cleaner brush, just kind of wipe it off and then softly blend that way. That keeps you from taking the dark too high up, but it'll still help you kind of blend all those colors together. Another thing I see people getting frustrated on is they look at their eyeshadow and it doesn't look the same as an Instagram picture. That's because they are highly edited. When you are doing real makeup, you're going to see the skin texture. You're not going to have this blown out flawless eye because you're not Photoshop. Unless you're Photoshopping your picture, and then you will. So don't beat yourself up if you look at it and you're like, it doesn't look perfect. Nobody's looks that perfect. I mean, unless you're like world-class MUA, perfection of the world, I'm not. So it's always going to look a little imperfect because you're not a robot and you're not Photoshopping your face. So don't let that stop you, because most of the time, the little imperfections that you see in your eye makeup, nobody else is going to see. If you do start to find that it's getting too far up, what you can do is get a clean brush, go into your lightest shade, and go back under the brow and just kind of start and kind of pop that again. And that'll help clean up, kind of like an eraser, anything that may have traveled up a little too far. When you're doing a smoky eye, it really just comes down to adding it in layers, being patient, and blending. And don't be afraid, like I said, to go back and use some of those middle colors to kind of help blend it all together. That's how you get that nice gradient look. All right, so from here, I've got a nice base where I could pop anything on the lid. I could stick with mattes, I could go with shimmers, I could do like a deep purple, I could do kind of a green color, anything I wanted to, and it would just blend into that dark. So this makes a really nice base for really any kind of makeup look you want to do. Look, I could do this really bright green shade. What do I want to do? Or you could do something kind of light and champagne-y. Something like this. So if you're not sure, you can put your colors on your hand and then kind of audition them next to it. So you can kind of audition these colors, kind of blend them in and see which ones you like together. I honestly really like this purpley shade right here. And I'm just going to use my finger. I've been doing that a lot lately for shimmers. And I feel like it gives me a good payout. Just wipe my finger off. And I'm just going to kind of rub my finger into the shadow, and then I'm just going to kind of pat it on. Kind of pat and press like this. And I will kind of go over that dark I did because it's going to just give it that smoky base. If you really wanted this color to pop, you could cut the crease and put some concealer there. I feel like this color is really pretty and pigmented on its own, but really there's like endless possibilities. That was the shade Raspberry Tart. I'll also put a little bit under the lash line because I really like that shade. And let's see, I want to do some highlight in the middle. This is the color Pink Silver. It's, like the name suggests, a pinky silver shade. And I'm just going to barely pat that in the center. And this helps too with my eyes, just making them look a little bit more rounded. And then I'll just grab some more of the dark and just kind of marry it together. And then I'll take a little of the dark again and just touch up that crease. Right on the corner there, I want to marry the two colors a little bit more. So this is the shade Raisin Berry. And I am going to put that on that corner to deepen it. Yeah, I like that just a little bit better. And then I will get my brush and I will blend. All right, I've got a little fallout and stuff, and I'm not gonna worry about that because we're gonna do foundation. So when I want my foundation to really last, I use a primer, and then I do a setting powder, like a translucent. Then I go back in with a high coverage foundation, and then I set it with powder again, and then I will do a setting spray. So I'm going to use first the All Nighter primer. This is a long wear foundation primer, obviously. I find when I use translucent powders, I don't have a problem with it being too cakey. But if I use like a colored powder, I do. I also like to use a pore refiner. This is the Cover FX Blurring Primer. For me, I have deeper pores right here, so it really helps if I conceal them. So this is the Manna Kadar. It is a pressed translucent powder, but it's still translucent. And I'm going to just pat this all over my face. And then I'll just kind of sweep away any of the extra. I have videos where I've done cream contouring. I've done it before makeup, after makeup. It really just depends on your mood, the trends that are going on, what kind of look you're going for. So there's no right or wrong way, in my opinion, to do it. Really just depends on what you like. My favorite foundation for longevity is this Tarte Face Tape. So you can see how really full coverage that foundation is. And then I'm going to go in with my dose of colors. This is light medium number 11. This concealer is my new favorite. I'm going to dot that under my eyes and a little bit down my nose, a little bit on my chin. And because this is already so full coverage, I will use a dampened beauty blender because I don't need it to be crazy thick under there. I also like to make sure I get around the sides of my nose right there, where it tends to be mist, kind of in your nostrils, because sometimes If you have nostrils that are a little more open, you'll get redness in there. I know that happens to me. Around the sides of my mouth, just anywhere I just kind of need to touch up. This will also kind of pull up any extra product I have anywhere. Just kind of refine the finish. And that's also the time you can kind of touch up anywhere along here if you need a little extra something something. Now I will finish off with my regular setting powder, which is my Pacifica. This has a little bit of pigment to it, so it does give a little layer of coverage. If you don't like that, you can always go with a translucent. I don't personally like to bake. I just put a normal amount of powder on under my eyes, but it's really to each their own, whatever works for you. So now I'm going to go into my highlight and contour palette. This is from IBY Beauty, and I'm going to use these to highlight and contour a little bit. How I have highlighted my face has changed with how my face has changed. My face isn't the same face I had 10 years ago when I made my regular contouring or my nose contouring videos, and so my technique has changed a little bit as well. So I sometimes will use these foundation brushes like this if I want a thinner line. You can use a brush like this that kind of helps get in there. Or if you want something just really nice and soft, you can just go in with a contouring brush like this. So it depends on how chiseled of an effect you're looking for, essentially. So for my cheeks, I'm going to use this one. I like to use something that's a little bit more cool toned. And I usually don't use anything that has a lot of shimmer in it. But I try to angle it downward like this. I try not to drag it down too far right here because it can kind of age you a little bit by pulling it down. And also I kind of want to lift. So I'll just kind of put it right where that natural shadow would be. Like that. And you can see that kind of lifts my face a little bit. And then I'll kind of just blend it down softly. Playing around with that angle can really make a difference on how your face looks. My face is a lot slimmer and smaller than it used to be, and so I don't need to contour as much as I normally would. I don't have a huge forehead, so if I wanted a little bit of pigment, I could just take the soft brush and go around here. But I don't need a heavy contour just because I don't have a large forehead right there. Now for the sides of the nose, I've done lots of different things. So I recently saw a tutorial, it was a few months ago, from Nikki Tutorials, where she kind of bronzed her whole nose and then went back and highlighted. I liked that. You can use a softer brush like this, just a little bit on the nose. If you want a really in-depth tutorial on how to contour noses, I have one. But I am just going to go in with this little brush here. And I'm just going to kind of shadow this part of my nose here. And I'm going to kind of do a little triangle here at the end, like that. And I could do a tiny bit on my nostrils right there. And then I'll take a highlighting brush and I will go into this light shade and I will lighten the bridge. I lighten underneath the line right here, coming over. And right here a little bit. And I also I don't like the line to go all the way up. I like to lighten and brighten up here. So my nose is more balanced because it's a little thinner at the top. So I like to expand that. I don't like to do the dark line that goes all the way up here. So that looks a little silly, but we'll get all blended out. So blending. You don't want to see those brown lines. You just want to give it a shadow. Then after I blend it, I'll go back and add a little bit more highlight to the top. Brighten up the under eyes a little bit up here. And that's basically what I'm doing for contouring. Alrighty, so now I will add some blush. I'm going to go in with my NARS Matahari brush and an angled brush. And I don't really like to do the apples of the cheek thing. I like to sweep it up like this. I just like to add it again in layers so I don't go too much, but I like to lift my face and not drag it down too much, so I like the color back a little more. Now when it comes to highlighting with highlighter, it all just depends on what your preference is. Some people might just prefer keeping it light with a concealer and a highlighting powder versus something shimmery, but you know I gotta have some shimmer. And I won't forget about them brows either. So this is a highlighter single that I got from I think it's Shop Miss A. It's very pigmented though. I mean, really just whatever highlighter you like. And I like to focus this on the top here and then up a little bit and then blend it in. And I don't like to bring it too far in. I don't like to bring it too far over here because then it highlights my pores. Just a little bit and kind of swirl. Then I'll use my big brush and blend. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do my brows and then I'll be right back. So the eyeliner I'm using is this Huda Beauty, the Lifeliner Very Vanita Extreme Black. I don't really care for the liquid liner on the other side because I think it's really sticky, but I like this one. And I've just done a really fine line. I find with hooded eyes, if I take my liner too thick, it just closes up my eyes. I also find that if I make it too thick right here in this area, it gives my eyes a really weird shape. But I like to do a thin line there, and then I also like to do a line right here in the waterline on the top and bottom, and it really helps make my lashes look thicker. I find if I do too much under the eye, it'll drag it down and make it look a little droopy, which is why you can see my eyeshadow I've kept in this upward position. My blush is in upward position, lashes in upward. It kind of helps everything lift instead of make your face droop. So now I will curl my lashes. I like to just go ahead and get them as close to the base as possible. And then I'll do kind of a pump right here, and then I'll go out a little bit and then pump again. That way they kind of go out and then up. So pump, pump. Sometimes I like to layer my mascaras. I really like this CoverGirl Supersizer Fibers for separating them. And I'll kind of like wiggle the brush at the base so I can make sure I get it really nice and close. And then kind of come out. I also like this one for bottom lashes. And then I'll sometimes go in this way and kind of paint the back side. I mean, look at that. That's no falsies, just like boom. I don't find to wear falsies a lot because I use a lash growth serum. They do really help a lot. I like to look down when I'm doing this so I don't get it on the back of my eyelid. But if you do, just let it dry and then take it off with a dry spoolie. So now I'm gonna go back in with my Go Big or Go Home and do a second layer. All right, now I will do a lip liner. This is just a neutral lip liner, but I'm gonna throw it on for good time's sakes. This is the Ace Beauty Be Peachy. When my lip liner doesn't completely match, I will just make sure that I fill my lips in entirely. And so lip color, I'm going to use the Buxom Lip Plumping Cream in Blushing Margarita. This is a natural plumper, so although it will plump, it won't burn the crap out of my lips. Put a touch of this gloss, which is the AOA like purpley shimmery gloss. I'm going to take some of this berry shade right here. This is the Raspberry Tart with a little pencil brush, and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to pop a little bit of highlight in my inner corner. So I'll use that same highlight color. And last but not least, I will take my setting spray. My favorite drugstore option is the CoverGirl Outlast Active. My favorite high-end option is the Urban Decay All Nighter. Make sure you get a good setting. There is my full glam makeup look. Of course, if you were going to wear a mask, I would nix the lip gloss, and I would go for something like a lip cream like this that's going to dry matte. Should we test it out? This is my favorite mask. It's from Natalie Mills Jewelry. I do have a discount code for it if you guys are interested, but it's super cute. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this super long tutorial where I talked through everything, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!